Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. Here's how a taxpayer's custody situation may affect their advanced child tax credit payments. COVID Tax Tip 2021-147, October 5th, 2021. Parents who share custody of their children should be aware of how the advanced child tax credit payments are distributed. It is important to remember that these are advance payments of a tax credit that taxpayers expect to claim on their 2021 tax return. Understanding how the payment works will help parents to unenroll if they choose and possibly avoid a possible tax bill when they file next year. So in other words, they're saying, hey, look, there's going to be certain situations in which the advanced child tax credit may actually be wrong unless you kind of correct it, and that would mean that they're going to give you these advance payments, which you would think would then correct itself when you file the tax return for 2021. So in order to understand that, let's recap the child tax credit, the advanced child tax credit, and what these custody situations might do to it that can kind of throw a wrench under the whole thing. So the child tax credit, as we probably know, is going to be a credit related to the child. So you're going to get a credit, which is going to be a tax benefit. And generally, you file the tax return, and then you get that benefit for the child tax credit as part of, in essence, the refund. Now, so for 2021, if it were the normal process, you would think that you would file the tax return by April 15th of 2022, and then you'd be filing for the child tax credit, and then you'd get the refund at some point after that, some point in 2022. But the IRS wants to give the money out sooner than that, and so they're giving out the advanced child tax credit. In order to do that, they actually increased what the child tax credit would be when you were to file for 2021 by April 15th of 2022. And then they made more of it refundable, meaning that even if your tax liability is basically at zero, you still get the credit if it goes past that point. And then they, in essence, took half of it, and then they decided to just basically then they cut that in 6 payments and decided to give that out over 2021 instead of having people wait until they file the tax return for 2021 by April 15th of 2022. They've done this kind of advance payment. This is how the stimulus kind of checks works. They do this with the health marketplace. So these are things that can get the money out sooner. It's kind of a timing. They're playing with the timing differences here, and they're getting the money out sooner. But obviously, it does add complexity to the process as well, because that means that they can't depend on the current information of 2021, which they don't have yet, in order to give out the advance payments, because they're not going to get that until April 15th of 2022 or by that date. So what they're going to have to do instead is depend on prior year tax returns, which would be the 2020 tax return if they have it, 2019, or some other non-filer information in order to get that information to give out the advance payments. The problem there, of course, is that the prior year returns could be wrong in some way. And so in one ways they could be wrong. The most obvious ways they might be wrong because a new baby was born or something like that in 2021. And obviously they wouldn't have been on the 2019 or 2020. That's not as big a problem because, of course, you can kind of shore that up when you've actually filed the tax return. So you might not get the advance payments in that case, but when you file the tax return by April 15th of 2022 for tax year 2021, you should be able to shore that up and get that benefit for it. The other problem, and the more problematic thing, is when the government gives out the payments over and above what they should have given out, which could happen if you had a dependent on, say, 2020 tax return, which is not going to be on the 2021 tax return for some reason or another. And one reason that could happen that's fairly common is you got a custody type of situation where the child is being claimed on one parent's tax return one year and on another parent's tax return in the other year. That means that if they were claimed on your tax return in 2020, the government's probably going to send you out a check for that because they're going to give out the advance payments based on that information, but they're not going to be there in 2021. That means that when you file your tax return by April 15th of 2022 for tax year 2021, you will have received advanced child tax credits, which you don't actually benefit from or you don't qualify for. You would expect then that would lower your tax return or possibly actually make you owe money when you file the tax return, which would be a problem. Now, so that's going to be the situation. So the IRS is basically going to say, if you're in that situation, it's your responsibility to stop us from sending you these advanced checks, even though we did it without even asking you or anything like that. You got to stop it by going to the IRS website and basically telling us that that's the problem so that we don't give you these advanced payments. And that's basically where we're at. Now, I honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, at the end of the year, they said, oh, we gave out advanced child tax credit payments, and I'm going to pass a new law saying that we don't care and we don't want the money back. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but they kind of did that with the advanced credits for the health insurance marketplace, which was kind of odd. So they kind of have a precedent of doing that kind of. I wouldn't depend on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did that at the end of the year. They're like, we gave out, some extra money, who cares? And then just like, not try to get the refund back on it or something like that. But that's not how it stands right now. Right now, they're saying if that's where you are and that's your situation, you should be stopping us from giving you these checks that you didn't ask for that we gave out based on the prior year tax return and so on. So here we are. So here are some of the most common questions about shared custody and the advanced child tax credit payments. If two parents shared custody, how would the IRS decide which one receives the advanced child tax credit payments? Who receives the 2021 advanced child tax credit payments is based on the information on the taxpayer's 2020 tax return. So again, it's based on the prior year tax return, or if that one wasn't filed, 2019 return, if the 2020 tax return has not been processed. So that means if you're going back and forth between the child being on one person's tax return and then on the other parent's tax return, then it's going to be wrong, right? The advance payment's going to be based on the wrong tax return because it's going to be on the other parent's tax return in the following year. So in any case, the parent who claimed the child tax credit on the 2020 return will receive the 2021 advanced child tax credit payments. If a parent is receiving 2021 advanced child tax credit payments and they shouldn't be, what should they do? So what if you're in that situation, you're saying, hey, I got this check in the mail, I didn't ask for it, I didn't do anything to do it, and it's wrong. So now you have to take action and stop the IRS from giving you this money because then they're going to want it back later, or maybe, unless they pass a law and say we don't want it back because whatever. But so then what are you supposed to do if they do that? Parents who will not be eligible to claim the child tax credit when they file the 2021 tax return should go to irs.gov and unenroll to stop receiving monthly payments. They can do this by using the child tax credit update portal. So there's a link to the update portal. So if the IRS just starts sending you checks and they're not supposed to, then you're supposed to go to the child tax credit portal and say, hey, stop sending me checks because, I didn't ask for the checks and I don't qualify for the checks and it's going to mess up my tax return when I file it in 2022 for tax year 2021. So receiving monthly payments now could mean they have to return these payments when they file their tax return next year. So if you don't do that, you spend the money, then of course, when you file the tax return by April 15th, 2022, and you don't actually qualify for the credit, you would think that they'd want the money back because you don't actually qualify for the credit. So if their custody situation changes and they are entitled to the child tax credit for 2021, they can claim the full amount when they file their tax return next year. So you might be saying, if you're questioning it, you're saying, I don't know if I qualify for it or not. We're going through a situation right now. I don't even know who's going to be claiming the child next year in terms of custody with regards to tax preparation. Maybe the safest thing to do then would be, say, just forego the prepayments. And then if you do claim the child on your tax return next year, then you would get the full credit at the point in time you file. So you would have a time delay as to when you would get the money, but you'd still get the money because you get the full amount. Otherwise, how it normally works is they take half the child tax credit, give it out during the year. When you file the tax return, you calculate the child tax credit, and then you have to subtract out the amount you got prepaid, which is usually like half of it, and you'd get the second half when you file. So if you didn't get the advance payments because you told them not to give them to you because you don't know if you're going to be claiming the child or not, and then you wind up claiming the child, then you'd get the full credit, when you file the tax return. So that's kind of the options you got here. So if parents alternate years claiming their child tax on their tax return, will the IRS send the 2020 advanced child tax credit payments to the parent who claimed the child on their 2020 tax return, even though they will not claim them on their 2021 return? Yes, because the taxpayer claimed their child on 2020 tax return, the IRS will automatically issue the advance payments to them when they file their 2020 21 tax return. They may have to pay back the payments over the amount of the credit they're entitled to claim. So people are probably asking the IRS this quite often these days, because this is a fairly common kind of scenario where you have this scenario, and obviously this advanced child tax credit isn't able to automatically take it into consideration, and it's going to require action on our parts to basically, to shore that up possibly. And no one knows how to do that because no one's ever seen this before. So it's going to be so that's kind of an interesting, but anytime they give out these advanced payments, it's going to make things more complicated. That's just how it goes. So some taxpayers may be excused from repaying some or all of the excess amount if they qualify for the repayment protection. There's a link to that here. If a taxpayer won't be claiming the child tax credit on their 2021 return, they should unenroll from receiving monthly payments using the child tax credit update portal. And there's a link to that here. Well, there was a link up above for that. If one parent is receiving the advanced child tax credit payments, even though the other parent will be claiming the child tax credit on their 2021 tax return, will the parent claiming the qualifying child still be able to claim the full credit amount? Yes. Taxpayers will be able to claim the full amount of the child tax credit on their 2021 tax return, even if the other parent is receiving the advanced child tax credit payments. So if you're the other parent and you're saying, hey, wait a second, because the prior parent, is now getting the prepayment. They got the credit last year, and now you're giving them the prepayment this year, which they shouldn't be getting. And I'm supposed to be claiming the child for 2021, and I'm not getting the prepayment. Does that mean when I file the tax return that I'm not going to get the child tax credit because you've been sending it to the other one? Obviously, you're going to also have an argument with the fact that the child tax credit has gone up substantially from one year to the next, so that just the benefit in general is going to be uneven between this normal kind of breakout between the benefit going from one parent to the other. But in any case, you got the second one. So you would think then that they're saying no, it shouldn't, right? If you're the one that qualifies for the child to be on your tax return, you would think the answer would be that you would claim them on your 2021 tax return, and get the full amount of the credit if you didn't get the prepayments, because they're going to the prior parent because that's who claimed them on the prior year. And then the prior parent, if they got the prepayments, it didn't stop the prepayments, you would think the IRS would want to try to get that money back, unless there's some kind of circumstance in which that they don't need to do that, or if they change the law at the end of the year and just say, we won't ask for it back, which I wouldn't be surprised to do. So that's kind of so the parent receiving the payments should unenroll, but their decision will not affect the other parent's ability to claim the child tax credit. So the IRS has additional information on answers to frequently asked questions about custody situations and how they may affect advance payments of the child tax credit. I noticed the one that they didn't really address here would be the one. Well, what if you're the second parent here that basically didn't, the prior parent is getting the child tax credit because they claimed the child on the prior tax return, and that's what automatically happened. The second parent, who's actually going to be claiming the child on their 2021 tax return, then they're the ones that should be getting the prepayment under the way the law's put up. So you would think that they should be able to go somewhere possibly and say, hey, give me the prepayments. Is there some way I can go to a portal and say, I'm going to have this dependent next year, give me the prepayments? They didn't really address that here. So is there any way, in other words, to get access to the prepayments if you're the second parent who's going to be claiming in 2021 that didn't claim in the prior year? That would be a question I didn't see quite answered on that one. But in any case, that's that. There's going to be some more frequently asked questions. Maybe they have that here in the frequently asked questions. There's a link to that here, so you could check it out if you would like, and there'll be a link to this in the description.